Hey, in this video, we're coming at you with my ranking of all the movies and shows I watched in 2023. I watched 19 movies and 9 shows/specials. I also started watching Paint and A Haunting in Venice. Didn't finish them because they weren't very good. There are many movies I wanted to watch this year, and some of which I didn't get to, like Oppenheimer, Rebel Moon, and the new Hunger Games. Okay, let's just get into this. At the very bottom is Spider-Man Lotus. This shouldn't even be on the list because it's a fan film, but I watched it, so it's here. This thing isn't very good. So this movie centers around the death of Gwen Stacy plot, which is an interesting plotline, but it shows it in the credit sequence and later in black and white flashbacks, so they don't really actually show it. This is much more of a Peter Parker movie than a Spider-Man movie, and it's fine. Most of the movie is Peter and his supporting cast crying. It does have some good parts, but the best parts were shown in the trailer, like the swinging scenes they did. And this movie is 2 hours long. I think you get it. I think we can move on. The first real entry onto this list is The Flash Season 9. Starting in March, going to July, I watched all 9 seasons of The Flash, and it was a great show. For 4 seasons. The first episode of this season was like a Groundhog's Day type thing, and it was pretty good. The crossover episode with Green Arrow coming back was great. And so was the Reverse Flash going full circle episode. Everything else was decent to bad. The Red Death arc started out okay, but was bad overall. The idea of the final arc, which was the Cobalt Blue arc, was actually really interesting, but pretty wasted. Pretty sad way to end this show. So there's this little-known concert tour that only made like $4 billion. Musician behind it is Taylor Swift. Yeah, we're talking about the Eras Tour movie. I'm definitely not the target audience for this movie, but with that being said, it was good. I can appreciate the production value, and some of the songs are kind of fun. Not my type of thing or type of music, but I can respect the impact that the whole tour made. The next movie on this list is Ruby Gilman Teenage Kraken, which was fun enough. Feels like a mashup of other kids' movies. It takes parts from Turning Red with her friends of school being reminiscent of the friends in that movie, and also the premise where the women in her family turn into big creatures, and our main character has this hidden from her for her entire life. The sea monster type vibes remind me of Luca. The day before this, I watched Sky High with my sisters, and during this, comparing the school elements to that movie. The one unique thing Ruby Gilman had going for it was that the mermaid is the villain and the Kraken is the hero. It was supposed to be a flip of the Little Mermaid. This is what made DreamWorks big with Shrek and the parody of reversing Disney, but in Shrek this leads to some great jokes, awesome humor, and is central to the plot, while Ruby Gilman just uses it as another element of this movie that has been done better before. This wasn't trying to be a great animated family movie, and it wasn't. It was fun and entertaining enough kids movie that has been done better in other family movies like Shrek, Luca, Turning Red, and Sky High. One day I threw on the I Am Groot shorts and watched them with my little sister. There are 2 seasons. The first one last year and the second one this year. Each episode is about 5 minutes and it's a cute series of shorts. I don't remember much about each episode as it is just some cute shorts with Baby Groot just messing around. If you have 5 minutes to spare once of cute Baby Groot, these shorts deliver just that. Heart of Stone is a action spy movie starring Gal Gadot that released on Netflix earlier this year, and it was fine. A pretty forgettable action movie that has a decent plot, I think. I mostly forgot about the plot. This movie is purely made for someone scrolling on Netflix to see Gal Gadot. That's an actress I like, spy and action. Those are genres I like, let's give this a try. That's what I did, and I got some cool scenes, decent action and plot, but very forgettable. This isn't the Fast and Furious brand of over-the-top action. Instead, it takes itself more seriously, and is just a movie that exists. I love Lego. I love Marvel. And Lego Marvel's Avengers Code Red was a fun little adventure. It's 45 minutes long and centers around Black Widow and Red Guardian's relationship. The villain is the collector who's trying to collect all the characters with Red in their name. It's a silly plot, but that's the point of these Lego TV movies. It's fun to see characters like Wolverine and Hulk together, Black Panther, Iron Man, and Captain America, and all the characters who are no longer in the MCU. And an Avengers team is nice. This was charming kids' entertainment. I love old creative Disney that made decisions for the sake of story, and Once Upon a Studio is a short film that celebrates 100 years of Disney animation, and it's pretty enjoyable. We get to see some fun interactions between characters from the history of Disney movies. It is very good. The interactions are fun. I liked it a lot. Secret Invasion is next on this list. This is one of the shows that I was most excited to check out of the Marvel Disney Plus shows. The trailers were good, I was super excited while watching week to week, and it was pretty good. Then the final hit, and I was in shock. How could they rush it and present more interesting ideas in the final than in the actual show? That's had me on the entire show, but I look back and remember that I was excited week to week. The plot was interesting, characters compelling. The last few episodes just made me feel like it didn't matter. It's a decent show, the problem is
We're on the verge of greatness. We were this close.
Mandalorian is a really good show. Din Djarin is a very interesting character and was developed well in the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. I like how in Book of Boba Fett, for all of its problems, set up Mando's motivation to regain his honor since taking off his helmet at the end of Season 2. This needs to happen for Mando to unite all of the Mandalorians, which is what the trailers sold me on Season 3 being. Turns out, all the things that he wanted to accomplish happened with a little conflict. He gets to the waters and regains his honor of ease. It's just kind of boring at some points. Is boring the right word? Kinda. The Unite All Mandalorians plot requires Bo-Katan to get the Darksaber, which she gets on a technicality. This just feels like they had an interesting conflict and wanted to resolve it in the fastest way they could. This is the reverse of what worked in the first 2 seasons, taking it slow, going through adventures, bringing us to different places and kind of taking its time. Bringing back Grogu seemed like a harmless idea, but it undoes the entire point of the second season and to some extent even the first season. They decided to do this in a different show. Grogu clearly doesn't fit into this season's story and it shows. He's just made to be cute and sell more merch. There's a pointless filler episode with Mando and Bo saving a foundling, and it was okay. That's probably my least favorite episode. This show was built on side quests that progressed the main story, but that episode just didn't do it. The episode that had Jack Black and Christopher Lloyd was kind of fun, but also felt a little out of place. The Dystopian episode just kind of happened and was good, but I feel like it would have worked better sprinkled throughout the episodes, especially how it doesn't get referenced again until like 3 episodes later. Bringing back Moff Gideon was a cool idea. I like the idea of the cloning plotline, but it literally went nowhere. The second last episode was really good, and the last episode was decent. I'm interested to see what they do in that Mandalorian movie that was recently announced, but there's still a chance of the fact that this season had wasted potential. Shazam is a pretty unique superhero movie. It matches big in your average, fun, enjoyable superhero movie. Shazam, Fury of the Gods can't do what the original one did as well for many reasons. First, Billy is more mature, which contrasts the immature Shazam. Second, all of the kids have powers now because they ended in the first movie, which doesn't make it feel like as small of a story with just Billy and his friend. The Daughters of Atlas are decent villains. I like the Wonder Woman cameo. It's just kind of forgettable. What If is a pretty good show. Season 2 seemed promising, and the new concept seemed interesting, and it was pretty good. I liked a lot of the show. The first episode with Nebula was kind of cool, but a little underwhelming and rushed in my opinion. The 2 Avengers team-up episodes were pretty fun. The Christmas episode was awesome. I love that parody Die Hard. The one with Tony Stark on Sakaar was cool. The Captain Carter one was an alternate version of Winter Soldier mashed with Black Widow, and it was easily the best one. The new character episode with Kahori was interesting and kind of good, but doesn't really fit the idea of What If. The final was just characters in God mode battling each other, and was underwhelming for how they built it up with cliffhangers at the end of better episodes, and also doesn't really fit the show. The show is pretty good overall. My ranking is on screen now. Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves is a pretty good family comedy. I don't know anything about the game, and I don't really feel like I'm missing out. But the world and history this movie built is great, the humor is good, characters are compelling, and the plot is a good adventure. I enjoyed this movie for what it is. Creed 3 was a pretty good sports movie. Jonathan Majors' character Damien was a pretty good antagonist. The fight scenes were very different visually. I don't think I prefer it over the classic way of doing it in the Rocky franchise, but I'm glad they experimented with it a bit. The other Creed movies relied on Rocky and Apollo's past in the franchise for the plot, which was great, but I'm glad they left Rocky alone with his happy ending from the previous film. His presence is still missed, nevertheless. The conflict and connection between Adonis and Damien is one of the best parts of the movie. It didn't improve on the previous entries in this Creed franchise, but I'm glad it exists, and it tried some pretty new things along the way. The next movie on the list is The Creator. This is a very unique movie that I'm glad I checked out. It's about a world where robots live among us and shows how we treat them as inferior for no valid reason. It centers around a man who is against robots and finds a robot kid who he's supposed to kill but can't bring himself to do it. He goes on an adventure with this kid and grows by that. This is a movie that brings up some interesting ideas and has great world building. The action is pretty decent, nothing crazy, but good for what it is. The story is the best part about this movie. The main problem is this movie thinks it's more emotional and clever than it actually is. It is streaming on Disney Plus now, so I would recommend checking it out if you are interested. The first two Ant-Man movies are pretty lighthearted and small-scaled. Quantumania was my most anticipated movie going into 2023, and after it got terrible reviews, I was a little more cautious, and it was still fun enough. The different places we visited in the quantum realm were pretty neat, the characters are great, the plot is interesting, the effects range from terrible to pretty good. Kang, who is supposed to be the new big bad, got taken down by ants, which doesn't feel right.
And it is a massive crime that Luis wasn't involved in this movie at all. That really sucked. MODOK was an interesting villain that was done kind of strangely, but was kind of fun at the same time. The introduction of Cassie Lang was kind of cool. Bill Murray's little cameo was a little underwhelming, especially how they put it in the trailer, but still cool. They make the quantum realm feel massive in this movie. It's just they really oversold this movie to us.
Ahsoka is an interesting show. The opening crawl and first scene with Balin and Shin are really great and got me hooked. The best description I've heard for the show is calling it the Star Wars Hangout Show. We spend time with characters, but there's no real journey. Yes, we find Thrawn and Ezra, which is the journey, and get a few awesome cameos, but the plot is only really half there. Hopefully the second season or the movie this is all leading up to makes this feel bigger. Seeing the Rebels characters again is very fun, and this does center around them as almost acting as a season 5 of Rebels, which might make the show hard to get into for some people who aren't familiar enough with Rebels. Hayden Christensen gives his best performance in episode 5. A lot to love, especially if where it's leading to is cool. The Marvels is a movie that has gotten load and hate. What? The Marvels is a movie that has gotten loads of hate, and I get why. It feels like another MCU project that's dumb fun, but I really liked it. Miss Marvel was the big standout. I love the fight scene at the beginning where they're switching powers, which is kind of what the movie sold itself on. The villain isn't anything special. I just really enjoyed the vibes of this movie. Blue Beetle is a pretty different DC movie. It centers around Jaime Reyes, who is a pretty good lead. His family is very involved. The suit reminds me of the Stark suit for Spider-Man in the Tom Holland movies. The plot is pretty basic, but makes up for that by putting the focus on the relationships between the characters. Pretty good and fun time. Wonka is a magical movie. I saw this movie for my birthday and had a pretty good time with it. My family and I have listened to these songs from this movie a ton because, well, the soundtrack's just great. It is a good overcoming evil type story and feels very different to the original while feeling like it definitely can be its prequel. Timothée Chalamet is incredible as Wonka. Hugh Grant is also pretty fun as the Oompa Loompa. It's just a really good movie for all ages. The Super Mario Bros. Movie is very special. This was probably the most packed theaters I have watched a movie in since, like, Endgame. This was an event that brought together generations of Mario fans, and I thought it was very fun. Although the plot isn't really there, the movie makes up for it with so much fun. The references and callbacks are great. The score uses the classic music of the games effectively. I don't have a desire to rewatch this movie anytime soon because I want to remember this movie for the event that it was. If you want more of my thoughts on this movie, I released a full review back when it came out. Indiana Jones is one of my favorite franchises of all time, so I've been pretty excited for this new one. And the trailer captured the magic. Dial of Destiny doesn't beat the OG trilogy, but it's still awesome. And the de-aging on Harrison Ford works well, but his voice still sounds like he's 80, which kind of pulled me out of it a little. There are lots of great action scenes throughout this whole movie. Mads Mikkelsen pulls off another good villain. Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character, Helena, is unlikable for most of the movie, as she tries to act like she's better than Indy, which, just why? But she does have her moments. The time travel final pulled me right out of the world of Indiana Jones, but it was still a cool idea. The ending of this movie is good, and it acts as the end for the franchise, but it doesn't beat where it could have ended at either Kingdom of Crystal Skull or Last Crusade. Those had much better endings that tie everything up, but for what the ending was, it was pretty good. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is a really emotional, fun, and overall good time. Counter-Earth is a pretty cool idea, done pretty well. The characters are great as always. The way they sent off the Guardians of Dog Days was great. Expectations were probably more high than they should have been, which resulted in this being my least favorite of the trilogy, and I was a little disappointed, but with that being said, it was still really good. The Rocket backstory is really tragic, and the High Evolutionary is despicable. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was really good. Back in the beginning of this year, I watched the first Fast and Furious movie and thought it was awesome. So with Fast X coming out, I got through all the mainline Fast and Furious movies in preparation for Fast X, and Fast X itself was a really fun time. This is one of my favorite Fast and Furious movies. These movies are now packed with characters and kind of focuses on having so many characters. Jason Statham is great. Vin Diesel has his moments. John Cena is also really great. Jason Momoa's villain character was amazing. Brie Larson's character was interesting. The kind of disappearance of Mr. Nobody was interesting. The way this movie ended felt really abrupt. Like, we were in the middle of a fight scene where characters are like potentially dying and all this, and then, oh, the movie's over. Yay! And then Letty met up with Cypher, I guess, and like the aquatic. No, not the aquatic. Letty met up with Cypher in like an Arctic base, which was kind of interesting. So when they get out of that, like Gal Gadot's back, which like this franchise loves to bring old characters that died back from the dead, which can be really funny. And then also The Rock's coming back. So I am interested to see where it goes in Fast 11. The movie itself was really good, had some really fun moments. I kind of like how they went back to the street racing element as well. The Flash is just a blast of a movie. Ezra Miller is surprisingly very good as the Flash. The opening scene with Batfleck and Wonder Woman is great, although some CGI is kinda shaky. The setup for Flashpoint with him realizing he can just go back in time and stop the death of his mother is great. Our younger version of Barry leads to lots of fun jokes. The return of Michael Keaton as Batman is also really fun. It's so great. Supergirl has a pretty good introduction here. Cameo scene is fun. I thought the Nicolas Cage one was really cool. The issue is that this fits into the DCEU, especially after the universe was announced to be getting cancelled. This would have been great as the end of a trilogy and the start of a new era, but it has always been made as an adventure too early in the universe, but also too late at the same time. And it's just amplified by knowing that this is the end of the DCEU. Still a pretty good movie. Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse is such an interesting movie. The idea of the canon event and having a major death need to happen for each Spider-Person is super cool. Just such an interesting idea. Miles Morales is such a great character who subverts the traditional Spider-Man, and this story is made perfect for his character. We get to see into Gwen's past, which is very interesting. Miguel is a great antagonist who believes that we must not change our fate, aka the canon, and Miles acts as an excellent foil to that. Spot is an interesting villain who acts as a looming threat to the Spider-Verse. The cameos and callbacks to practically every past Spider-Man and more are so cool. And the twist with where Miles ends up is crazy. The only problem is that this is part 1 of the story. This movie's incredible. Loki Season 2 is so very interesting to me. The way it continues from where Season 1 left off is very unexpected, but great. And the way it makes Kang feel like a threat is just insane. It's like how in Harry Potter, Voldemort feels massive with all the build-up throughout the movies, and everybody in the universe feeling scared of him. And another comparison is they call Voldemort You-Know-Who, and the name of the Kang variant who we meet at the end of Season 1 is referred to as He Who Remains. And the crazy thing is, even Loki is scared of this looming threat of another Kang variant popping up, because He Who Remains just freaked him out so much. It's just, if you have an antagonist who's freaking out Loki, you're making a good antagonist. Obi is a really fun character that is great. More of Owen Wilson's Mobius was super fun. We get to see him on that jet ski. Casey is a character from Season 1 who is expanded pretty nicely. We also did get to see a little bit more of Sylvie in here. Ravonna is a character who has ties to Kang and takes the antagonist role for the most part. Miss Minutes has turned into a really creepy and frigged up character. Loki's time slipping is very important to the story in a way that I wasn't expecting, especially when it seemed like they resolved it in episode 1, and it eventually results in him becoming the god of stories, which that last episode was so good, and this show is just wild. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning is a really great movie. The AI themes in this movie are pretty interesting and compelling. Parts of this movie went a little over my head, so definitely need to rewatch it, as do most spy movies. Some things are a little bit too smart for me. And this movie is basically non-stop action. The opening scene at the airport with the bomb and Haley Atwell's character Grace is super good. The car chase with Grace and Hunt is just so much fun. The death of Ilsa is pretty tragic. Vanessa Kirby is awesome in here again and brings her character from Fallout back. Luther and Benji are great as always. The train set piece as well, with the motorcycle jump, and then at the end they're like dangling from the train trying to climb up it. It's so great. The character of Gabriel was really intriguing to me, and it's as if he's a part of like an AI or something, which was really interesting. I want to see how that goes. And this movie did feel like it wrapped up its plot, but it also feels like we still have more story to tell in what was supposed to be called Dead Reckoning Part 2, but apparently they're going to rename it, so that's cool. And with that, those are my thoughts and ranking of all the movies and shows I got to watch in 2023. That came out in 2023. You will also find a review for Sound of Freedom, Gran Turismo, and any other movies that I missed that I have checked out since on the channel very soon if they're not there already. 2024 looks like a very cool year for movies with some releases like Argyle, which I'm actually watching this weekend. And hopefully we get some great movies. It looks like we are. We're getting movies like Twisters and Planet of the Apes and all this. It looks like it should be a pretty good year. And now all I have left to say now is Space Viper out. Thanks so much for watching. Peace.